What up, TikTok? Hey, hope everybody's having a great Friday. Hey, don't let anything that's negative in your life dictate the rest of your life. Does that make sense? Hey, we all go through some hard times. We all go through some emotional stressors, maybe at work, maybe at home, whatever it may be. Don't let that dictate who you are and how you react to the rest of the things that life throws at you. Does that make sense? Like if you're feeling pissed off and angry all morning or all day, you're going to take that energy and you're going to present it to everybody else that surrounds you, your loved ones, your soldiers, whoever it may be. You're going to use that negative energy and it's just going to make everything worse. Try to be positive. Pick something positive in life that's going really well. Use that positive energy and let that dictate the rest of your day. We can harp on the negatives. We can harp on the bad things that are going on in life. It's not going to help us. It's not going to help us move forward. Stay strong, keep pushing, drive on. Happy Friday.
What's up, Trash Talkers? Hitting you up this morning with a special promo on how to dress when you are doing PT in civilians, but you want everybody to know you're an Army. This comes from the Buddy Beckwith fashion design of how to work out. So first, you can notice the RI panties. Not Ranger panties, but Ranger instructor panties. The green socks, the knee brace for the old guys. Don't forget the M frames. Now the shirt, don't wear the Trash Talk shirt while you're running. This is just for the promo. You want to put on like an 80-second shirt or like your favorite airborne shirt so everybody knows that you're a veteran. That's the most important thing. And you start with this stretch. Buddy Beckwith taught me this one. Ready to go.
So, I'm walking out of the gas station and my co-worker, who's an old MP, but we still claim him, and has engaged the man in conversation. Not much for conversation with strangers, but he's got the tab. So as I walk by, I say airborne, and the man responds with, and I quote, "Hoorah." So after I instructed my coworker to slash every single tire before he put the car in gear, I look for the biggest rock. As I crow hop to throw it through his back window so he can stop posing as one of us, I actually wake up and realize that the man's ignorance had incapacitated me for a moment, and I was daydreaming. I mean, because in that moment you got two options. I chose the third option and said, "Incorrect. That's an incorrect response." And I kept walking. The man said nothing and he pulled away. So you tell me, what is it, a stolen valor thing? No Marine's gonna have an airborne tab, and no paratrooper's gonna say hidden hoorah. So you tell me, stolen valor?
Hey, y'all, I'm going to work. I left you a note on the refrigerator. I love y'all. I'm gonna go.
Hey, go get dressed. Get ready for school.
You're doing great. I was just tooling along. Shit! Bad guy! Stop!
Let me break it down Barney style.
Today's show is brought to you by the Farkas Group at the Veterans Mortgage Source. Are you looking for a team you can trust for your mortgage needs? The Farkas Group is our trusted partner on the podcast. I serve with Zach, and he will definitely give you the best rate possible. Their goal is to educate veterans across the country on their earned VA home loan benefit. If you're looking to purchase or refinance your home, reach out to these guys for competitive rates or any information you may need on obtaining a VA mortgage for your property. They are licensed in multiple states. If they are not licensed in the state that you live in, they will still give you the advice that you need and the rates you should be looking for.
This is the Veteran Trash Talk Hour, hosted by Nick, Dave, Joe, and Buddy. Real warriors making fun of other real warriors. Try to not get triggered.
Hope everybody has had a great day so far. Welcome to episode 75 of the Trash Talk Hour. Shout out to our sponsors, Zach Farkas with the Veterans Mortgage Source. You can check them out at zachfarkas@vmsloans.com. 10th Mountain Whiskey, check them out at 10thwhiskey.com. Type in VTT and get a special discount. And special guest today is Kennedy from Project Red Team. And today I'm joined by Len, Nick, and Buddy. Over to you, Len.
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. It's been so long since I've joined y'all. So much has happened with me. I've taken kind of a hiatus, but you guys are always in the back of my mind and in my heart. What I really want to say today, and I really want to emphasize, is go Navy, beat Army. Woo!
Did you go to Naval Academy?
I didn't, but it's Navy all the way, right?
We're gonna cheer for the worst football game on the face of the planet
This year. It was the worst.
I'm gonna go to a high school game and watch that and watch better football. If you're trying to get a rise out of these Army guys by saying go Navy, beat Army, it's not going to happen. I have not spent one day at West Point, and I dislike most of the people that are there right now.
That's fine, but I said what I said. Go Navy, beat Army.
Yeah,
I know we haven't won since 2014, but I still have my faith in my Navy people.
Naval officers, like, they hate enlisted people. Like,
It's written into their books.
like, it's one of the worst disparities ever. And the Navy is the reason why there is no jump in pay for a sergeant major who is at a nominative level.
Is
and
that
has
a
way
fact?
more response. Yes, because the Navy
Really?
refuses to pay their enlisted guys that money. So the
Wow.
DOD has to pass it. The old CENTCOM sergeant major came to talk to us in Hawaii and was like, so he's with 7th Fleet visiting. And so the Admiral says, let's go up to have some drinks in his office. So they go up to the top floor. And so they're starting to pour drinks, and the senior master chief, whatever you call you guys out there, he's like, he grabs sergeant major and says, hey, we got to go. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, we can't drink with them. And he's like, let's go to my office. I will have a drink there. And so they leave, and they have to go down 3 freaking flights and then go to some corner. And that's where the 7th Fleet Senior Master Chief's office was.
Damn.
That's
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
My
either.
grandfather was a rear admiral. Yeah.
I bet he
A lot.
That's where
He
he
was.
was.
I had to brief a Navy commander one time while we were deployed, and I have never wanted to jump across the table and throat punch somebody that looked at me with the.
Yeah, like, why is this? What is this puppet?
What is this? Who is this peasant? Who is this peasant?
The operational environment and has planned 5 years worth of strategic development of the battlefield. He doesn't know. He's never even been to sea school.
Probably
C
can't.
school.
So I guess most of my career I interacted with limited duty officers, is what we call them. They go from enlisted to officer. And so I had nothing but positive experiences with officers. Now, the ones that did go to Naval Academy and stuff, they did act a little bit different. However, my experience is mostly with the we call them Mustangs, LDOs. So, and I'm stick by my guns. I'm just gonna say what I say. Go Navy.
Yeah, you got. Can't be afraid of the dumpster fire.
Loyalty is a virtue,
Yep.
even when it's misplaced. It's fine.
Is it a virtue?
I don't know.
That's how I feel being a Clemson football fan this year. So it's all cool. The 2 years I was in college there was the Trevor Lawrence era. And I was like, yeah, Clemson. And this year I'm like, Clemson. I love Clemson. Go.
Yeah,
Is he as pretty as he looks on TV?
So I don't know. I never was a part of the woohoo fan page, but he
Why you
very
got that weird smile on your face then right now?
did you ever
No, he's not. He's not.
well, being a 5'10",
I'm not even a little bit gay, and when that dude takes his helmet off, I'm like,
He's
there's
sexy.
some There's
Yeah,
a little bit going on
He's a
now.
good looking dude.
I tutored student athletes when I was there. So like one thing I admired about him was that like being 5'10", it's very rare that I'm in a room full of people that are significantly taller than me. And for like in a room around all of them, especially him, I think he's like 6'7". I was like, okay, I could get used to this. But also he looks like Sunshine from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
So it's like, or remember, is it Friday Night Lights?
Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans. That's what it is.
Hollywood is the reason for everything.
And I remember the first time I like saw him in person, I was like, is that can't be the guy from the movie? That was way too long ago. I didn't know anything about football when I got there. I didn't know who he was or anything. I was just like, this is a very large man with very long hair. This does not fit the traditional like Southwest South Carolina person that you would see. And then I found out who he was. But yeah, being in the era of Clemson between 2018 and 2020, and now like being an alumni going to games is a very, very different dynamic. It's like a quiet, like I'm still going to be a fan, but I'm going to kind of like hang back here and be like, go Tigers.
Yeah, I had the same problem as an Alabama fan.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sure.
No, never. Even when they were bad, it was fine.
But yeah, we Len jumped right into the dumpster fire. Did you have anything else to say, Len? Because we completely cut you off and started talking about naval officers and Trevor Lawrence's butt. I don't know.
Wait,
but yeah.
say that again because my headphones.
We cut you off to talk about Trevor Lawrence and naval officers. So
no, it's
fine. Is there anything else?
I'm all set.
Yeah. So
over here.
So again, if you watched the fight picks earlier today, make sure you change your Facebook screen to support Joe Britson. All right, go to VTT Triggers Joe and say prayers for him. He has COVID. He's had COVID for like 3 months now. He's playing that like it's his death sentence, and now he can't do shows with us anymore. But it is what it is.
We love you, Joe.
Yeah,
we miss you.
Long COVID.
Maybe you should treat your body a little bit better and you'd recover faster. Just saying. Get some vitamin D in you.
Probably does.
Yeah, probably does. But anyways, on a serious note, I remember when Teresa Doherty messaged me the first time. It was almost 2 years ago. And, she's like, hey, is it okay if I join your group? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. She's like, but I'm not a veteran, but can I? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And like we always try to tell people, especially the entitled veterans on our page that want to get mad about everything, trigger pansies, where they're like, why are civilians in here? Well, guess what? The veteran that kills himself doesn't do it on base. Okay.
We let the Air Force in too. So it doesn't matter.
He or she does it in a neighborhood, right? They do it in a community. Right. And so if you want any type of systematic change to the suicide problem, socially, not just in the military, but social is a problem for everybody. It's not just a veteran problem, right? The community has to be involved. And if they're not, it might not change a thing. All right. I know we're in the COVID era, we're chasing certainty for some reason, like we can stop a virus. Never been able to stop a virus. Okay. We probably will never, ever stop suicide ever. Right. But so it's a bad goal to have, but it doesn't mean you don't try something different, try something new, right? Get people involved that, maybe they send $30 a month to Wounded Warrior Project thinking they're doing their part, which, good for them. But, get them involved. They might have an idea. They might have something for you. They might have a job for you. There might be something, they might have, whatever. They might invite you over to a cookout and maybe say, hey, how was your service? Do you mind talking about it? Because I watched this show, Veteran Trash Talk, and these guys talk about everything, so it's like, and again, so Teresa was such a beautiful soul, and she's been struggling for a couple of years now, and the good Lord finally took her home, and so her pain is over. And whether you believe in heaven or hell or whatever, let's just say there is, for the sake of this segment, she's in heaven. There's no doubt about it. Every time you posted something, she was the first one to comment on it.
She befriended everybody. She was on our personal pages too.
She shares all of our family's
positive.
pictures, all this stuff. And so we're deeply, deeply saddened at her loss. We are glad that her pain has been taken away. And but we're also, we are going to miss her. And her family reached out to us and said that it didn't go unnoticed how happy she was on your guys' page. And I think it was much more on our end how happy we were to have her. So,
100%.
Right.
we
Exactly.
Cheers to Teresa.
Yeah, cheers to Teresa. And then it stinks that you got to follow that, Kennedy. But as is life, the only certainty is death. Okay, so that's going to happen. There's no reason to be afraid of it. Just live your life and have a blast. And Teresa brought joy to everybody, and so that's she definitely, her last couple of years that we knew her, she did a lot of great things. But Kennedy works for Project Red. Did I say that right?
Red Team.
I know.
Red Team.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Hot route. I don't know what that means. All right, no, it's not Project Red. It's Project Red Team. They were supposed to do something with our group, but I think she flaked out on.
Yeah,
Dave
what happened?
Yeah, she flaked out on me, on Kevin and me.
Oh, you were supposed to do something with.
I was just waiting in the room,
but
where
you
is
didn't
she?
do anything.
On a
here's the
Sunday.
thing.
Yeah, I want to
Hey,
know
welcome
the
to the
story.
Trash Talk Hour.
Oh yeah, welcome.
Hey,
good.
that's how it goes though, is calling it what it is. Because we'll get into kind of the dynamics of why we built our program to be the way that it is. But at the core, Project Red Team is a platform of an organization called Hope for the Day. Hope for the Day is a civilian-owned, operated organization that focuses on proactive mental health education and suicide prevention tactics. So the idea is the more that we can dismantle stigmas and get into spaces in order to have these conversations about mental health, dynamics and hierarchies that create escalation into the crisis stage, which is where we see suicidal ideation, self-harm, overindulgence, in certain aspects, the sooner that we can get people proactive care, because when a person is at a point of crisis, they don't know how to activate that care. And as we were navigating, we were launched as an organization, Hope for the Day, in 2011. And through the last 10 years, we've had the opportunity to see the need in different intersections, and veterans, first responders, and their families were one of them. That's where Project Red Team came to life. So our platform, which I'm the director for, directly serves military service members, active duty veterans, and their families. And the idea is that if we can go into these spaces with peer-led individuals sharing their stories and this information in a way that meets people where they are, we can ultimately proactively prevent suicide. And so we were going to bring the education presentation into the group, but there was a miscommunication somewhere where length of time of what we would need it and people being able to sign up. Because one of the things that we like to do is that in our education programming, we provide an opportunity for people to share their experiences, to really build that inner camaraderie, because it's a whole dynamic to be broken down, but we essentially do three things. We want to raise visibility. So we wear t-shirts and sweatshirts that start the conversation. And then we get individuals educated. So attending any of our education programming, we've had the opportunity to educate over 700 people in the what year are we in? 2020?
2021.
Probably why you missed
It's
the
been
meeting.
chaotic the last 2 years, so it's whatever.
Last year didn't count,
everything's
but
blending
today.
together. And so through those education opportunities, we give people the space to, learn about dismantling stigmas, those hierarchies I talked about, what to do to be supportive, what to do in crisis response. And then lastly, after they get educated, and sometimes even before, because education can be hard to sit in this space and talk about some heavy shit. We get people connected to resources that are available and that maybe they didn't necessarily feel comfortable activating before, things they didn't think they were worthy of. We see a lot of dynamics of trauma in the military that's not just combat related PTSD or mental illness. It's burnout, it's toxic leadership, it's overexhaustion, it's poor care of oneself, it's eating disorders, it's identity it's all of these different things that get compartmentalized, because at the end of the day, you put on the uniform, you go do your job, and you aren't supposed to do anything outside of that. You are the hero, so how are you supposed to ask for help? And so our goal is to start that conversation for individuals so that they'll activate those resources and find that higher quality of life again.
So what got you into all of this? I mean, you just out of the blue said, I'm going to start this organization, or, what was the fire behind it?
Yeah.
So
Dave. Thank you. I so it's kind of cool. So Hope for the Day started in 2011. This guy named Johnny founded it. He was working in the Chicago music scene, and he was recognizing that people were connecting over these songs that had a lot to do with mental and emotional turmoil. And he was like, why are people all connecting over the same thing, but they're not talking about it? So he created Hope for the Day as an organization, and it's grown over the last 10 years. And I was a volunteer sharing my story. I struggled with anxiety and depression in high school, but I didn't know until I went through a mental health stay for postpartum depression. And I sat at a room full of people who were like, this shit sucks for the first time. And I was like, whoa, you too? I was like, this is cool. Like, everybody sucks. Like, everybody feels the way that I feel.
Not Buddy and I are don't.
Yeah, no,
Buddy and I are happy every day.
You guys are
every single day.
Every single day.
But Pharrell actually wrote a song about me.
Go ahead, Kennedy. What'd you say?
I hate you guys.
I said Pharrell actually wrote that song about you guys. Like, the Minions were inspired by the two of you.
Oh yeah.
I could see it. But yeah, so I was volunteering with them for a while. And then in 2018, I started going through a divorce. And my ex-husband was in the Marine Corps. We did every statistic you could think of. We got married when I was 18. I had my first kid while he was deployed. Just, your generic. He was no 341. I think I said he was.
No one knows what that is.
Yeah, no one knows what that is.
Single human knows what that is, other than other 0341s or whatever.
So he was a mortarman in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, that's an 11 Charlie. Not a huge deal. Just say 11 Charlie. We'll be on the same sheet.
Yeah. So he was a mortarman in the Marine Corps and joined really young. He planned to go career. He had an uncle who was a full-blown colonel that he looked up to. And during a training incident in a log run, he was the tallest guy, caught the weight of the log. And the Marine Corps made him sit on the injury for 9 months before he got any kind of attention towards it. They did a surgery. They were like, yeah, you'll be fine. Like, as normal, rub some dirt on it and move on. And then they took him off limited duty early and sent him on a deployment where he ended up screwing it up even more. They brought him home, and just the conglomeration of just the mental turmoil and the physical turmoil that his arm took, they were kind of like, hey, you're of no use to us anymore. We're going to kick you out. Here are some benefits. Have a great day. And during that transition process, we had our oldest son. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no direction. We went through just a really, really tough fucking time transitioning. And nobody was having conversations with us about the hard stuff. No one was normalizing what the experience was like. No one was directing us in the proper ways. We were just hearing all of these stigmas, basically proving that our struggles and our experiences were our fault. Like, if,
around what year? What year was it?
2015. So all of this was happening in 2015, and like, we're thinking to ourselves, like, this is our fault. People are like, oh, we're going to get divorced anyway. Like, why are you worried about it? We're like, none of our family and friends understand, but then like, he doesn't want to interact with our friends from service because they're still active duty. And there was just that turmoil that went in. And so that went on for a while. And in 2018, we ended up coming to the conclusion between both of us to just dissolve our marriage. We have 2 sons together. And I got my acceptance letter into Clemson, and I was using education benefits at the time. So I got really involved in the veteran community on campus. And I realized that everybody there, their transition had some piece of what I thought I was isolated in my experience as a spouse. And so the more that I got involved, the more that I realized was like, people weren't talking about their experiences. The DOD and the military were not properly equipping people with that transition. They weren't articulating their experiences. Nobody was having conversations about mental health and emotional turmoil and all of the things that lead to these passive struggles that they've normalized as a part of the military cultural experience. And so I ended up
that's the point, is that they normalized it.
Yeah,
right?
It's just become a part of the culture. It's just what you do. So I ended up working and interning for a bunch of different veteran organizations, and Hope for the Day was like, hey, we're piloting this platform. We know that you're working in this space. You've been a volunteer with us for a while. Would you be interested in consulting? And so I consulted on the development, and then a director position opened full time. I interviewed, and that's how I got into the director position. And so I took this on in May of 2021. So I've been in the full-time position for just about a little over 6 months. But I was a consultant as this assistant director for about a year, putting in about 60 hours a week of volunteer hours while working full-time as a contractor for the Marine Corps. So I've been in different spaces that kind of got me into this position, but ultimately, I guess at the core of your question, my passion to be the resource my family didn't have is why I do what I do. It's kind of the fuel that motivates just getting people access and having conversations that people won't have. have, because it's as simple as two people who think that they have nothing in common saying one thing that clicks, and you're rebuilding that. It's like, I like to think of our educations and our programming as going out to the smoke pit, just like minus the nicotine addiction. It's that moment to walk outside and be like, yo, this shit sucks. And someone be like, I get it. And then instead of just going back into work and taking everything to normal, we want you to go back into work and take the information you learned at the smoke pit and apply it to enhance that quality of life. And, you know, you talking about Teresa is a perfect example that, like, you can't just have the perspective of the service members. You have to have a full encompassed mentality, because we see things about each other's experience that we don't see in whatever position or role we're playing ourselves.
Hey, smoke pit's a good analogy because smoking's really stupid, and Dave and Buddy still smoke. So
yeah, Buddy,
we all have our vices.
How about that? And you already know that. We've already talked about it. So
I'm just saying.
This triggered.
Hey, we're trying to be honest here. We're trying to be open. All right.
Hey, Kennedy, I got a question for you. Do you think that, and as I'm transitioning out and doing all my stuff, and I've talked to a bunch of my friends, and you know, as far as the VA, I don't. It's actually just people
just us here.
They got their phone number in my phone, and I just randomly call them. I don't even know who they are. It's just three of them. I've actually tried to get to buy a warranty on their car, but
somebody said they knew me.
Yeah. So, but my question is, it seems like the issue with transitioning, and it doesn't really matter if it's you're doing it when you're retiring or you're doing it at any other point in your career, is that there's no real guide. There's no step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's this weird flow chart that's filled with all this other stuff. And it almost seems like it's made that way on purpose, because if there's more bureaucracy and there's more
bureaucracy,
there are more hoops to jump through and obstacles to try to like navigate through, then people won't be able to get the benefits that they are.
It's a hard word to spell.
That they earned. You know, it's not like they're getting benefits that they didn't earn. All the stuff is stuff that they were promised. But if they don't do that, the government and the military save quite a bit of money.
Oh yeah.
There are, you know, like when the VA people were even talking about how many people use their GI Bill or use their disability or any of that stuff, and it's
or even getting unemployment when you get out.
Who was the Vietnam vet that we had on that was just now filing for his disability?
Oh, Bob Wingo.
Yeah.
Bob Wingo worked for Governor Bush and President Bush, and still didn't realize he was entitled stuff.
Wow.
I think that's the hardest era. They are really not educated.
I didn't know it until just recently, when I went to one of the VA briefings that we had to go to. Like Bob, who had spent 50 years not getting any of his benefits or whatever, he's not going to get back pay for that 50 years. He gets it from the date he started the claim, not from when he got out of service and had all of those issues. He gets it from when he started the claim. So he's already, like, I talked to one of the kids that's having to get out because he's not taking the COVID shot. And we were going through his stuff, and I was like, yeah, man, like if you've got things that are messed up, you need to go see the doc, because, you know, if you're this small percentage number away, that could be up to like $300 or $400 or $500 that you're not getting, that you're supposed to be getting. And in 6 years, or like in a year, that's $6,000. In your lifetime, that's almost $500,000 that you're just leaving on the table.
Right.
And that money is going to go up as inflation skyrockets, because they're going to have to give people raises at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I think you brought up a lot of dynamic points. And I think the first to start with is, you know, you're talking about the individual from Vietnam. Stigma is one of the biggest things that we talk about at Project Red Team. And because you have to understand stigmas and the role that they play in this dynamic in order to really understand why systems or things are the way that they are. So if you look at Vietnam veterans, right, when they returned home, they were not welcomed the same way that, you know, individuals who are sometimes coming home from Afghanistan are. They were the baby killers. They were you guys are an abomination to the United States. They were the this and this and this.
And Bob's black. So that was even more fun.
Oh,
back then.
absolutely. Yeah. You have to, the thing about the military is that people think that when you carry the veteran identity, that's the only stigma you're carrying. But if you think about it, you put the same uniform on as somebody for however long period of time, you have to think they lived a life prior to putting that uniform on before they ever stepped wherever they did to go through their training. And those stigmas and the identities that they carry go through with them in the military. They just more often than not get compartmentalized, especially for people of color or different sexual orientations and identities, people who have different upbringings, maybe didn't grow up in the military or joined for reasons other than that passion for service. Maybe they needed to go to avoid jail time. Maybe they joined the military because they wanted to better their family. And so if you think about that individual, right, he's carrying the stigma of what it's like to be a Vietnam War veteran, that the United States doesn't care about him, that he's not entitled, that he's not worthy of those benefits. We're talking about an era of time for individuals where conversations about emotional and mental well-being and physical well-being for men was not even having been had at all. And so when we look at our Vietnam veterans, and I think the attacks on Kabul really opened the eyes for individuals, Vietnam War veterans created the path for veterans who are transitioning now to have access to the resources they have access to. The only difference is that if, going back to what Buddy was saying about, the VA and the systems, they've manipulated the systems to say, hey, these things exist, but you have to find it on your own. It's a scavenger hunt you have to figure out by yourself. Because for the VA, they would rather pay out your $400,000 claim for something to happen to you than to continuously pay and be responsible for the ongoing care of whatever your individual experience looks like. So when we look at, the system of the flow chart that you talked about, we're talking about a governmental entity that operates like a business. And the way that the business looks at it is we invested money in this weapon. We put this weapon through training. We put this, gave this weapon clothing. We gave them food. We gave them opportunity. Oh, this weapon wants to get out or doesn't want to oblige what we're doing, or we broke it to the point it doesn't work anymore. Well, guess what? We have new ones coming into the system. Give them the bare minimum of what we have to give them as a part of, thanks for coming to my birthday party, and then get them out. And so that's where organizations like Project Red Team come in, is like our ultimate goal is to get into those steps and taps and those separation classes, have these conversations to break down those stigmas, get people connected to the right spaces of where they need to go. Because you're right, it's an individual articulation experience. If you start your claim process within a year of getting out, you'll actually get back pay from the day that you transitioned out. But if you don't know to put that disability claim in, within that year of transitioning out, then you're losing an ample amount of money, an ample amount of opportunity to take care of the things that you need to take care of. I mean, my current partner is a perfect example. He got out in January. He didn't put his claim in until May. And it wasn't until, we were able to talk about some of the things. Like, he was an LAV mechanic. He was like, I don't rate disability. Like, why would I go in and get a disability claim? I was like, you literally have to do this every 20 minutes to put your shoulder back in place. Like, you held engines over your head for 12 hours a day. And it's stigmas that are perpetuated within the military system. If you think about it, the military experience is one of the only experiences that society has shaped what that looks like, what you're validated in talking about, what the military experience is supposed to look like, what you can be celebrated for, what you're allowed to wear, what you're allowed to do. And then there's people who are going to work every day fighting for freedoms that they don't even have access to, like getting whatever fucking haircut they want or going to see their family and friends whenever they want. And so if you think about transitioning out of a system that's created this baseline of what your experience is supposed to look like to be valid in taking advantage of things or getting what you're entitled to, then yeah, it's going to be hard for people to want to claim those things. But then when you really break it down into how it falls into the system, breaking down those stigmas and reshaping the narrative, if you will, because mental health is a taboo subject in the military. You can't talk about emotional turmoil or stress that's normal as a part of everyday life, because your weapons could get taken, your security clearance is going to get taken. Your leader, you're putting MST as a perfect example. Talking about MST in the military, you're the first thing a lot of people are met with are, well, are you sure you want to potentially put this person's career at risk? And it's like, why are we putting a system over top of humanity? At the end of the day, if someone's getting, cut in the same field training operation or out in a combat zone, they're both bleeding red. So why are we not giving the same conversation and opportunity?
Yeah, we've talked about that before on the show with non-combat MOSs, which we are. Well, Dave used to be a combat MOS and then he quit like a big baby. But so just because you're not a combat MOS doesn't mean you haven't went through, like you said, you know, your partner now holding the engine up, or like we brought up a couple, like one of our first couple of shows, you know, we were at a little patrol base and I was getting bombed and rocketed. Our mechanics were like where most of those mortars landed, and they were out there all the time, you know, and they never left the wire. But you don't think that they have a little bit of like, you know, I don't know, like forever remembering those sounds, and you know that like just the whistles going over their heads, and like oh shit, here I'm going to die working on a tire. You know, it's like that's gay. Right. But like and then you know you have the cooks. You know, you have
you're not allowed to say that's gay. You're not allowed
well,
to say that.
if you say it like Eminem, you can, right? As long as you put that disclaimer in there. Yeah. I meant it the way Eminem says it.
Okay.
So yeah, again, that was not sexual, even though I don't care if anybody gets mad. We do that disservice. However, there is also the devil's advocate. What you're saying is what happens to any minority group. They get, and veterans are a minority, so you get disenfranchised. All right, you know, and pick a color. You know, if you're Hispanic, are you Puerto Rican? Are you Mexican? All right, like, and you must, you know, we put you in that group, and that's where you belong, right? And you must think this way because that's you're a Mexican, or you're black. You have no say because all black people are the same, right? Now, and then they did the opposite for Europeans. They just called us white people, you know. But like a Scottish person like Kevin Travers is way different than, you know, a Spaniard, right? Like there's tremendous differences, right? But if you're white, I guess you're just white. That again is the system, the entire system that has been established. And then again, to play the devil's advocate to the entitled veteran is, I'm currently in the process of medically retiring because I can no longer be the weapon that they created. And I'm okay with that. And I could probably fight to stay in for a couple more years. But then again, what am I doing? Like I'm taking an E8, E9 slot away, you know, from somebody who can be a weapon. Because then again, the DOD's job is to win freaking wars, period. So you can't necessarily say it's a bad thing to throw out the stuff that can't help you win wars, right? And then it's like it's the community that you guys have built at Project Red Team and that we're building at Veteran Trash Talk, you know, and then we have you on the show because we want to encompass it all to where it's like, hey, you need help, go see these guys. Maybe Project Red Team isn't for, you know, Len, but maybe it's for Buddy, right? Like, you know, and then we also have this other thing over here. You go check those guys out. So yeah, it's a tremendous project. I've read up on it, and you know, especially when we first started talking when you're supposed to help. But where can people go to get help with Project Red Team? What do they do?
Yeah, so I think first, to kind of like bring it all full circle, we have to understand like one of the biggest things when we're talking about any identity is respecting the dignity of the individual. And that's something that gets lost very, very much in the military experience because you're taught to respect only the experiences or the level of integration or X, Y, and Z of a certain stature. You know, you talked about like, oh, well, you know, we should be okay with individuals getting transitioned out where like they're no longer a weapon. Well, what if it's the military's failure to do what they needed to do to take care of that service member that they're getting transitioned out? That's institutional betrayal right there. Like that's an opportunity for a service member who thought their service was going to look one way and didn't. So like my ex-husband's a perfect example. He did everything he was supposed to. He was that like up your butt trying to be who he could be, got injured something outside of his reach and consistently went to medical trying to get the care he needed, and they didn't have the capacity to treat him. And so he couldn't get the injury fixed because, again, he's under a limitation. He can't go to civilian doctors. There's so many pieces that go into it. And so when we're having mental health conversations, the biggest thing that we have to understand is in order to help everyone, we have to respect the experiences of people even we don't understand.
Right. You can't disenfranchise. You can't lump everybody in. Like we had Dr. Gade, who was, authored Wounding Warriors, and we had him on. And I have to say it all the time to people when they say, I suffer from PTSD. Do you? Like, what exactly do you suffer from? Do you suffer from PTSD, or do you have PTSD and you suffer from anxiety and you suffer from anger management, right? So when you just lump every veteran into PTSD, it disenfranchises us. And, and then it makes like, we just got to throw more money at it. But then again, like I said, to play the devil's advocate with the DoD's mission, and first and foremost is to win wars. Buddy, what you got?
Well, the issue is, and I understand, I'm tracking what you guys are laying down, but here's the problem. Just like you just said, our mission is to win wars, right? So if you've got a guy that's not, for whatever reason, whether it's because he's got his own issues or because he can't physically do the job, that's not bringing the ability to win a war to the team no longer, it's for lack of a better term, he's just dead weight. And it's not something that is done intentionally. Like, you still love the dude, still a great dude, but at the end of the day, you've got to take 10 other dudes and go complete a mission. And that guy is a distraction from getting the mission completed. And for him, the mission is himself. And I can see where they will feel like, yeah, that they've been betrayed or they've been whatever. And what confuses me about the whole thing is that, we've got this whole, and I don't know what the Navy and the Marines and the Air Force do, but in the Army, we've got this whole Wounded Warrior freaking brigade or whatever that was set up back in 2005 or 6 or whatever.
Warrior Transition Battalion.
Warrior Transition, yeah.
Warrior Transition people. If somebody is having that big of issues, and every battalion, every brigade, every group has X amount of doctors that are set up for behavioral health. They have X amount of doctors that are set up for physical therapy. They got it, but they're not used because the people that are in those units don't have time to go use them. They're and honestly don't want to be the guy that's not bringing something to the mission. So why not take those services away from those people that aren't going to use them because of lack of use? And then, because the only people that, when I go to physical therapy or I go to the behavioral health clinic or whatever, the only people I see are people that are transitioning. They're, in their last year, so they're going to get everything documented that's fucked up and been fucked up for years. Why not, when somebody gets hurt or when somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I'm having some issues, why not just interpost transfer them to the Warrior Transition Battalion so that they can be guided through the process of either getting fixed and then not detracting from the mission. So they're not getting that stereotype. They're not getting all those stigmas. They're in another place. And then if they get finished with the process and they're like, all right, you're checked, back to return to duty again, then you just go back to replacement and you go back to a unit and nobody knows anything. You just PCS for a little bit and you have no stigma. You've got no problems. You go back and you're back to doing what your job was. The big problem with the stigma thing that we talked about, it's not the stigma that other people have for you. It's the stigma that we believe for ourselves. Like it's in, doing all of my medical stuff to get my claim done and do all my, going in and admitting issues that I've had for years, and then having to admit to myself that I am not a 25-year-old anymore. And then
you're not even a 35-year-old anymore.
I'm not even a 35-year-old. I'm more like 45. But having to admit that those things are an issue and I can't do the same things that I do, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow, especially when you've been operating at a level above most people in the military.
Right. And that's why I needed this therapy.
The hard part.
And I needed this therapy as well on our Saturdays, is because I went through that crossroads a couple of years ago. Because Kennedy, like your ex-husband, I was hurt on an airborne operation in 2011. And I can't get into it right now, but stay tuned until about February when I get out, and I'm going to drop this guy's name and everything, and it's going to go nuts. Right. Like he misdiagnosed me, gave me Valium, said, get after it. And I was like, Roger that, and so boom, 3 years later, I woke up, I couldn't walk. Right. And
wow.
Like now I got a battery in my butt. I've showed it on the show before, and I got wires in my spine, and it's like, this dude did that to me. Like even if they would have kicked me out, then I probably wouldn't have a battery in my butt right now. And I probably would be able to play basketball with my girls. I can't make like whatever. Like I can't even.
Hey, can we be honest?
Hey, I was on 2-piece team that won the base tournament.
You would probably have more than just a battery in your butt.
Well, maybe.
Oh,
Well, I
God,
definitely,
buddy.
yeah.
I think
Everything in your prison wall.
But yeah,
I think
like
all of that goes back to respecting the dignity of the individual. Like if you think about it, for a lot of individuals, you, like I mentioned sort of at the beginning, your job is at risk if you speak up. Every chain of command operates differently. You could have someone who could have a minute injury and they think it's not that big of a deal and they're just going to keep operating it. You know, if you're, most of my experience has been working with Marines. So if you've got like an E2 and E3 who sustains an injury or goes through something, but they hear all of their E5s, E6s talking about how like they saw a buddy get kicked out for speaking up, or, you know, they talked about, oh, I had to go through this, and this was almost at risk. And then, you know, I had a gunny that came in and just fucked my life up. That's what we're talking about as far as like respecting the dignity of the individual, but also understanding like the system is broken to an extent. Like, sure, we're great. We're moving people to win these wars and stuff, but also we have to understand that like what recruiters are telling people or what like OSOs are telling people are not what their experiences are when they're joining. And so you have this mentality.
No comment.
You have these things that, and not every, I mean, obviously not every one of those individuals are the same. And it goes back into that not grouping mentality, but like, you know, it seems simple to be like, oh, why don't we just transfer these people and do this and do this and do this? But it also goes down to what we were talking about before we started about, you know, how like the Navy has set a standard for what a certain, you know, rank structure and pay and stuff looks like. It's the same thing. If the Army were to do one thing, then the Navy is going to be responsible for doing it. And the Marine Corps is going to be responsible for doing it. And as much as they like to act like they're separated, they all fall under the DoD system. And so it's one of those things where every situation obviously is going to be unique and different. But when we're talking about a lot of people who have come in the post 9/11 era, their experience is not nearly what individuals who joined prior to 2001 have been. And that's because a lot of the people who trained them were people who saw wartime. They were people who were leading them. And then they've been in garrison mode or have been working stateside the entire time. And so it's like my value and what I've contributed to this experience is not worthy. So why am I going to take advantage of these resources? Why am I going to go get help for these things? You know, I had a friend that went through his disability claim service. He went in to go claim something with his back. He had a leader who just like, he was just one of those guys who hated his life. And so he needed somebody to take it out on. And so not only did he take that mental turmoil, but he ended up injuring himself. And when he went in, there was this like 3-time combat deployed double amputee who was doing his evaluation. And he said he held back sharing in his evaluation because he was like, how am I going to ask for disability claim related to military service when this individual, like it's a constant state of comparison. And so Project Red Team provides an opportunity, right? Because this kind of going back to your original question is our education is about 1 hour and 15 minutes long. Every presenter is someone who is either the family member, the supporter, or the actual service member themselves, whether active duty or veteran. And they come in and we talk about, hey, you know, this is going to be a space for us to talk about stigmas that have affected us, to dismantle this hierarchy that, you know, you have to fit in a certain box in order to be valid in mental health struggles. Or if you're down here at this bottom of this hierarchy, then like you're not allowed to talk about them. And then we want to knock it over and be like, no, it's more visible and less visible, not more important and less important. And when people come in, we give them the tools to articulate their experiences, how to navigate resources. You know, if they're in the active duty experience and they need mental health care, they can't go to their chaplain because then it's not confidential. It can go up to their chain of command. I've seen people get discharged from the military for speaking up about suicidal ideation. Suicidal ideation is not non-existent in service members and veterans. They just aren't talking about it because for most of them, their jobs are the only thing keeping them alive.
Well, yeah, you're like, again, so we've talked about this show a bunch about, you know, how the system, everybody thinks they have the one answer. And I'm glad that you talk about it as a system because there's, and like, you know, and then the individual, because that's what we preach as well. And then Buddy always says it. And we've done it as leaders. You know, Buddy was never a first sergeant, but you know, he was a team sergeant. And then like, and then Dave and I were first sergeants. And so like, and then again, like, because of my experience, you know, of the way I was treated as a younger soldier, you know, with medical things, I was always there with my senior medic as a first sergeant at 5 o'clock in the morning. Right. And, you know, for like sick call. And it's like, bro, you're going to go see somebody about that. Like I'll
Yeah,
see
you get
Ross-
chastised back in the day when we
right back
came
in the
up
day.
for going to
you
sick
get-
call.
Remember when they
Yeah.
used to make the profiles
Oh, yeah.
walk around the quad, you know,
Like
and
the
all
walk
they
of
did-
shame.
so all they did
but-
was just
but
get
Yeah.
you know
ripped
what?
out.
We say that.
Back
and
in my
talk
day, you
about
go to
that, but
sick call.
who was
Yeah.
going to sick call back then? You
Yeah,
know what I
it's
mean?
funny.
It
It's
was
funny.
the
Exactly.
same fucking shitbags every day
Mhm.
that were going to sick call.
You're
But
right.
that's the thing that's kind of like it's.
But that's the thing. We called them
catch-22 about-
shitbags.
They were shitbags.
They were shitbags.
They were. Like I'm not making it up. They were. And
No,
that's-
but that, like, yeah.
my next point though is that it's kind of a
Malingers.
catch-22.
He meant malingerers.
Malingers.
Malingers. Malingering.
Yeah, shitbags. That's so it's code for fucking malingerers. Anyway, but that's the other problem is that the medics and the medical field, even in the Army, you know, they have to try to figure out who is doing what and who's who's faking an injury, who's faking and doesn't actually have a problem, and then who does. And sometimes those lines get blurred. And then if all you see is shitbags, i.e. malingerers, and then you've got a guy that comes in that has the same symptoms because the shitbag looked up on WebMD what the symptoms he needed to claim were, then those guys have an issue too. You know what I mean? So it's not all that the system is screwed up and that the system did things. It's also the fact that there are a lot of kind of rotten ass people that we have diluted the system and screwed the system up to the point that and that's why when we grew up in like say the 82nd, I remember having blood and pus coming out of my tennis shoe because I had a hangnail from the day I joined the Army until about 8 months into being at the 82nd. And finally my team leader looked down and saw it, and it made me go to sick call. So they cut half of my freaking toenail out or whatever. I came back and I had a soft shoe profile.
Yeah, you did.
And, yeah. And then I came in, had my tennis shoes on, and he looked at me and said, what do you got tennis shoes on for? I was like, well, I have a soft shoe profile. And he said, yeah. Shoe one, go put your boot on the other foot. Let's go. And I was like, oh, all right.
I think that's the thing too, is we have to think about it, you know, by calling it a system, we have to recognize like how many different intersections there are to it. Because if we're looking back to, you know, with what you were just saying about, you know, there are going to be shitbags and there are people who aren't, it kind of makes, at least from my perspective. So the way that I like to look at it is like taking in people's information and then being like, okay, how can we change the narrative for them to kind of understand a different viewpoint from this? And the way that I think about it is how many of those shitbags or how many of those people, you know, got into the military and realized that it was not for them. And so now they're trying to manipulate a way out because it's not as easy to just transition out. And then it's like, okay, well, are we going to call them shitbags and continue to make them feel like garbage about themselves because they thought it was going to be something? Or is there a way to enhance this experience? And then you're talking about, you know, well, how are we supposed to be mad at the way that the system is operated and the docs are doing the best that they can to figure out who's being, you know, great and who's not? And it's one of those things where you have to look at like going back to stigma. Stigma are social or cultural factors or beliefs about ourselves or others that shape the way that we interact with our environment or our spheres of influence. And so if someone is thinking to themselves like, I need to, you know, we have people, and a shift in baseline behavior is a shift in what's normal for someone. So for me in high school, when I had anxiety and depression really bad, when I tell you I was a hypochondriac, I had a brace on my leg or my knee or was on crutches or was sick and had a stomach ache and had a headache. And I put my thermometer on my lamp one time. My mom was like, no, dumbass, you can't have 115-degree fever. Go get dressed. You're going to school. So like, if we think about
saw that on ET.
Yeah, if you think about the cores of like what people are struggling with, it's going to manifest differently in different people. And so, you know, you could have a service member who is struggling significantly mentally and thinks that they have to come up with these fake mental health injuries or over exaggerated or come up with fake physical injuries in order to get the care necessary to just be heard. And then on the other side of it, you're also going to have service members who are refusing to step up and get help because they're thinking of all the shitbags who have taken advantage of the system and they don't want to be thought of that way, or they're thinking about the fact that somebody out there has always had it worse. And that's what it comes down to, is when we're doing our educations, we have all of these different people from all of these different spaces who are sharing their experiences, and they're finding commonalities that basically break down to, I'm an individual who had an experience. It looks like this. I wish wish I would have done this. It looked like this. I did do this. You're learning from one another and you're rebuilding that camaraderie, especially for veterans that super get lost when you transition out, because you go from putting on the same uniform every day, someone telling you when to show up to work, what to wear, for a lot, it's when to brush your teeth, when you're allowed to shit, when you're allowed to see your family. Like, you're falling into this system. It's kind of like being inside of a room and being able to watch everyone exist outside the window, but somebody tells you when you can open and close the door. And then one day they open the door and hand you your DD-214, no matter how your transition is, whether it's medical retirement or you did your 4, 8, 12 years, whatever. And then they go, have a great day, wear whatever you want, wipe your ass with whatever toilet paper you want, clean whatever you want. And people are like, yeah, this is cool. And then you get 3 to 6 months into it and you're like, hold on a second, what am I doing? Like, and then you think about the disability claims process and you try to go in and talk about your claims and they're like, oh, well, you had a whole evaluation when you were transitioning out. Why didn't you bring it up? And people are like, dude, I just wanted out. I just wanted
Kennedy,
Well, right. Go ahead,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for veterans or active duty military that are transitioning out, for Project Red Team, where are you guys based out of, and who do you help? Is it nationwide or is it just a certain part of the nation? Like,
no. So
what region are you guys in?
Yeah. So the organization as a whole is based out of Chicago. That's where our office is.
Okay.
That's where like our physical operations are.
And are you in Chicago also?
No. So I live in Richmond, Virginia. That's what's really
dead.
Yeah.
Get murdered in Chicago.
What's really cool about living in Richmond is, or our organization being hosted.
Oh, Richmond is cool now.
It's literally El Salvador.
Richmond's not cool. I hate Richmond. I never wanted to move back here. But the cool thing is that the organization operates internationally. So our educations not only can be done digital, but like I just got done on what I like to call like a little tour. I did an in-person education in California. I did one in Texas. I did one at Camp Lejeune, actually. And so we literally can bring these educations completely free of charge into community spaces.
And how do we find the education? Is it like TAPS? Is it transition education? Like, is it through the military? Like, how do we get that education?
So you go to projectredteam.org, and that'll list all of our upcoming like digital educations that are being presented. But also there's a cool little button there that says like request an instructor. And basically all it takes is for someone to be like, hey, I want to bring you into my space. And we bring everything else with us.
Nice. Okay.
So
That's
pretty
legit.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So an example is I had an HM2 reach out to me at Camp Pendleton, who was like, hey, I really want to bring you in as a part of our safety brief for going dark for like winter for people going on leave. What does the process look like? And so I had him fill out the form. He picked a date and a time for us to come in and do an education. We find local presenters, or a lot of the times, like if it's a larger crowd, I'll fly out to wherever it is. Obviously, as I get further in my pregnancy, it's going to be a little bit more limited, but we have other.
So the network is already there. Like, you're networking with active duty units and military and stuff. And you guys go from city or base and present or talk about these things.
Yeah. It's just a matter of someone initiating interest. I mean, that's what's cool is like, we have a clinical oversight committee that makes sure that all of the information that we're putting out is clinically backed and appropriate, but we have the peers who are meeting individuals where they are. I don't expect you to be a certain rank, a certain space, a certain understanding of mental health, a certain experience. I expect you to have your butt in the chair and share as you're comfortable, but just take in the information as you can. So if you go to projectredteam.org, or I will give my email and kind of get wherever it is and get with me, it simply comes down to filling out a form with a date and time and an estimated amount of people. And then we work with our education department at the organizational level to try and make it happen.
This is awesome. I want to cut you off real quick, specifically when it comes to the VA claims. Okay. Cause I know we got a lot of vets watching. People are lost. You provide them with that education. Do you actually have resources as well where you point them in, and say, hey, these guys can literally do this paperwork for you, walk you through it? Like, how does that work if somebody's having an issue with his claim specifically?
Yeah. So the thing about our education programming is that it's peer led. So we don't specifically walk people through disability claims or specifically talk through certain things. We basically teach you how to articulate your experience and proactively start that conversation about mental health as a whole. But we also break down the dynamics that play into mental health, like the need for social services, stigmas that have kept people silent for a long time. And so at the end of our educations, We provide crisis resources. So we talk about the 24-hour hotlines that are available and what they do, but also we get people connected with our resource compass, which is this really cool tool that you put in your zip code and it will show you all of the local like mental health resources or social services resources that are available. I can send a link to push out, but as far as kind of your question specifically, if there's a service member, you know, we always leave a Q&A after. If there's a service member who's like, you know what, you talked about this is my personal experience, can you help with that? We don't do the action steps ourselves, but we get people connected. So we'll look up.
Do that, Dave. The veteran service organizations like the DAV, Wounded Warriors.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Is veteran resource centers are where we'll get individuals connected. But the thing is, a lot of people have never initiated looking those things up because they've never,
personal responsibility.
They don't know.
They've never. Well, and for some,
it's not even personal responsibility. I'm sorry to cut you off, Kennedy, but it's not even personal responsibility. You don't know what you don't know, and if
lack
you
of
don't
knowledge.
Yeah, but ignorance is no way to walk through life either.
But I don't necessarily know.
Like you can't.
If you don't know, though, you don't know. Yeah.
Every single soldier in the Army I can speak for goes through a program that says, here is a list of people you should call. Like every single one of them.
But what if someone's looking at that list and they're going, oh, these are all people who help combat veterans. These are all
personal ignorance. And so that's what I'm glad your organization exists to be like, no, look, you gotta go do that. You know, like, and then you brought it up earlier. It is some bad leadership, you know, that is part of it. And again, as a leader in the Army, I'm like, did you go do that? And they're like, no, well, I'm going to walk you there now. Like, I'm going to take you there because that's the responsibility of a leader. So yeah, there are things. And again, when you talk about the system, which I'm 100% the same page with you on that, is like, you can't expect that system to take care of the individual, right? It's almost impossible because the system has in place already leaders to take care of that individual. So again, like we talk about, the Vanessa Guillen, and when that happened in Fort Hood, Buddy's first comment was, where were the NCOs?
Well, and that's the thing is not every command is equipped with proper leadership. Not everybody has gotten into the position.
As is life, like that's life.
And that's where like proper resourcing comes into play. Is if you're thinking about, it's not saying it's the Army's responsibility to get the individual the things that they need, but it is the Army's responsibility to put better systems into play to make sure that the right people are in the right positions.
Right. And the only way we're ever going to do that is to try.
Also, when you get out, you just said it, Nick, where's the leaders at, right? The leaders should take you to A, B, C, and D. But when you go out, when you get out, where are the leaders? There's none. There's no one to tell you, here's A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, you got to start adulting.
Go back to A. Yeah, you got to actually do things.
Start being an adult.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, to be honest, that's why we started our page too.
Right.
That's why we started our page.
Exactly. That is exactly what it's about.
I will say that and before the show, we were talking about like Wounded Warrior or whoever was looking for somebody who had just transitioned out. And I think we've just stumbled on the reason. And the reason that they're looking for somebody that just transitioned out is because the DOD has changed policy so much in the last probably 10 years, 5 years or whatever, like that, I complain about having to go to the classes that I have to go to because I'm getting out. And I'm complaining about them because I've been in the Army for a long time.
7 years.
I know
40 some years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 50.
A long time.
But so that the processes to transition out have changed a lot. There is a lot more education.
100%.
There are a lot more mandatory things that you have to go to. Some of them I think are pretty stupid, like a monthly budget. But then I was talking to one of that same guy that's going to have to get out because of the virus thing, or the vaccination thing, and he doesn't really he's not, I just take it for granted that he knows how to make a monthly budget because he's an adult and as an E5,
you'd be surprised.
Know how to make
you're relying on this income. And then when you get out, it's like a shop. Like, I don't have this.
I mean, I don't know where the shock
What
is
should I
coming
do?
from. Like the problem is that and you know, this starts when you're a private, like you got privates that are riding around in $80,000 trucks. Well, you're an idiot,
Yeah.
you know. And
Hey, real quick, buddy, Joshua Penny is asking how the Civil War was. I just had to put that out there.
It doesn't matter how many team leaders or squad leaders or platoon sergeants or sergeant majors tell you to stop driving, like don't buy an $80,000 truck if you make $12,000 a year. They're still going to go out. Like that's why there's no Dodge Chargers or freaking Camaros available to be bought in Clarksville, Tennessee, because every specialist and his brother has a freaking Hellcat, or they've got an $80,000 car, and then they go to get out and they're like, wait a second, I'm not making any money anymore. Well, yeah, that's what happens when you don't have a job anymore.
But think about how much of that has been is part of what we were talking about earlier. Things that have been normalized that shouldn't be normalized. So like the idea that it's like normal for you to get married and have kids and do this like high interest rate car buying and this and this and this and this. The people who are coming from maybe a povertist place, are thinking, oh, I'm going to create a successful career. I'm going to build this process up for myself. Or if you're thinking about people who are joining the military for whatever aspect of whatever reason, they've planned their life out. The military has created this idea that, okay, you can build your life as long as you're willing to commit to us, we will give it to you in return. And so you could have some salt dog, if you will, that's above, that's like, oh, don't spend the money. But then you've got some person who's like, listen, I just escaped maybe a rough family, or like, I'm making all of my dreams come true. I can make this happen. And then they're going to a car dealership, and the car dealership guy's like, no, listen, like I deal with people of your age and your stature all the time. I know what I'm doing. So then they get into these systems, and then something happens. They don't have that income anymore. Or they transition out, and it's this idea that life is beautiful on the other side. And it's kind of this full circle mentality, and it's hard because it's a double-edged sword of like where you want people to have personal responsibility, but you also want to hold accountable things that have been normalized or systems that we kind of want to break down and reinvent in a way that they will
and
support
that's why
the existence of things.
Right. And that's why Veteran Trash Talk says, we don't get political. We don't talk about government programs or policies because we don't give a shit. It's like, you come into our group and we're going to help you. Like same with Project Red Team, I would assume. It's like we can say what we want about any president. We can say what we want about any, law, anything, but it doesn't do any good. Like what does work is a community. What does work is, people who, if you're looking for that leader, you come to Veteran Trash Talk, which was full of them. There's generals in there. There's politicians in there. They're like, what type of leader? Yeah. What type of leader do you want? Like, do you need somebody to tell you suck? That's probably going to be me. Do you need somebody to say like, hey, I'm with you, brother? That's probably Dave. All right. If you need somebody to make fun of the way you look, it's probably Buddy. So it's like, we're pretty much bringing the squad back. We're putting the band back together.
You're meeting people where they are. You're meeting them where they are, and not where you expect them to be. And that's what it's all about. Is when we're having this conversation, it's easy to sit and talk and, shoot the shit about everything that's going wrong. But then that's where what I love about our education programming is we're saying, hey, we understand these things are wrong, but I also want to provide you the tools to take the next step into getting into the spaces and taking advantage of the resources that are available. But it's kind of one of those things where you can't push it under the rug and be like, oh, well, that was what it was. It's like, you have to call it what it is without harping on it, but also giving people the space to be like, listen, if you need 2 days to sit on this and be like, this sucks, I can't believe I got to this place, take the 2 days. It may only take me 2 hours. I'm going to respect your 2 days, but I'm also going to hold you accountable, like you talked about, to be like, you have to take care of yourself. I'm going to validate your experience, but I'm also going to teach you to articulate and change the narrative of how you have viewed that experience for so long. And I think that's one of our core goals is to, if I think about myself in the position as the director and where I want this platform to go in the future, what I want to be able to do is create an opportunity for people to learn how to change the narrative of their story and be a resource for themselves that my family didn't have, or the resources I wish I had known. Because if you think about it, if a service member is going through whatever transition programming it is, it could be that they are so excited to get out that they're not even paying attention to those classes, or that they're so focused on what's going on in those classes. Maybe they have short-term memory loss, or they literally try to go home and tell their spouse, hey, this is what I learned. And then they completely draw a blank and they're like, I literally can't tell you anything I learned. I just have this piece of paper Yeah,
That's
that doesn't
me.
explain
Yeah.
anything.
No, Dave, you're just dumb.
And that's
That's because they don't teach you classes in German or Italian. They
I'm
would
a bad
remember
test taker.
They,
Oh, so
they
you're
got it in
stupid.
his native tongue.
Okay.
It sure just all looks and that's
well,
it.
and
So, yeah.
that's exactly
all that
what happened
matters.
with my ex-husband. Was like, I was like, okay, what did you learn? Like, what can we do? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, here's all the paperwork. And I'm like, well, this doesn't tell me anything. This is a pamphlet about like, how to go talk to these people. But then you think about the stigma of being a military spouse, where I'm like, people think I'm just fat and trying to claim benefits and just keep procreating, which
I remember
Hey, that's
when
a
I
technique.
went,
Certain
when
states,
I was-
it can be very lucrative.
Can make a
When
lot
I
of
was
money. You got a lot of kids. You got a lot of money.
but it's
when I
like
was transitioning and I went through TAPS class, I remember just bringing home pamphlets and booklets. Like, what is this to me? I don't care. I'm getting out.
yeah,
who
and that's
cares?
exactly it. Is like think about being a part of a lifestyle for so long, and it's like all of these new and exciting shiny toys.
Their buddy has.
Yeah,
I want to.
You're bringing home these books.
My
It's like
one
it's
day
a book.
VA
Okay.
benefits class book.
Yeah.
It's all.
I want to transition a little bit, not just military, because you said you do first responders as well. And we do have a lot of first responders on our page. We've had quite a few on the show. How do you apply what you guys do to them? I'm guessing it's pretty similar in the education, but could you talk about some specific things that you would do for first responders?
Yeah, so it's the exact same thing. So that's what's really cool is that Hope for the Day created this space of this is how we're going to talk about these things and present them, but we're going to let the peers who understand articulate those experiences. So we'll also have first responder. We're trying to create the programming to be a little bit more comprehensive in 2022. That's like one of our main goals, but we'll have first responders come in and do the exact same thing we have with the peer-led military space. They'll share their experiences. We talked to I talked for 2 hours with some of the individuals who work at the high top part of Copline, which is a de-escalation crisis service, 24 hours, where previous police officers help individuals and people.
Yeah, because their systems are really broke.
Yeah,
and we want to talk about some issues that the military has. We've had a couple officers on. One of them's a close friend of mine. He does music as well, kind of bridge the gap in the community.
He's a rapper.
He's a rapper, but he does a lot of good stuff in New Jersey. But he talked about the mental health issue with the police force. It's way worse.
Yeah, how are you supposed to?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to call the people you work with when you're having a mental health crisis? How are you supposed to articulate to people you're supposed to be saving that you're having a hard time? It's that stoicism aspect. Same thing with doctors and nurses. They go through something super similar. And so that's what we like to do is get people connected to resources that are applicable to their unique situation. Like Buddy touched on it very perfectly, that a lot of these spaces have operated in it's generational. The way we talk about mental health has been passed down from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
And at the core of everything, everybody has mental health. Mental health is good and bad. It's not just depression and anxiety and mental illness. It's also getting really excited when you get a new truck, or being frustrated that you're demoing a house, but also being excited that you own a house to be demoing.
Correct.
That's the full encompassment of mental health. And so when we're talking about law enforcement, we want to do the exact same thing. When we're talking about fire and EMS, we want to do the same thing where we're bringing peers in to share their experience and then getting them connected to those resources that apply directly in their communities. I had I'm trying to think. I had a police officer reach out to me who I just know on a personal level that was like, hey, I'm really struggling with my mental health. I'm really scared to go to my EAP.
Because they lose their job and then they lose all their money immediately. Those are things that can happen quick.
They're going to put me on desk duty. I'm not going to be eligible to do, level up basically.
Yep.
Or, I'm just a patrol cop. How am I supposed to compare to this detective who works on homicide? It's this constant, again, that hierarchy of comparison. And so we do it exactly the same way we do for the military. We just change the language and the things and the resources that we're sharing and articulating. Because that's what it is.
Awesome.
Is
That's
every
great.
community has unique challenges. We have an LGBT plus specific platform for individuals in that community. We're working on a BIPOC.
You hear that, buddy?
We work on our, we have our general educations that goes into high schools. So that goes into community centers. We have workplace mental health that goes into organizations and businesses that want to create a better mental health atmosphere. And so the great thing about being clinically backed is we know all the information we're putting out is accurate, and we know that we can't get in trouble and it's not going to be misconstrued, but we have peers who know exactly what that experience is like. And I'm not going into a workplace mental health and being like, I know what it's like to work in a corporate structure, like yada, yada, yada. No, I'm not a peer that understands that, versus being a previous military spouse. I can come in and be like, I know what it's like to watch someone you love come home and put a uniform on the chair and then have no idea what to do with themselves because they took that uniform off. I've watched people worship that uniform for so long that they feel like they've lost everything the day that they get told they can't put it back on, even if that's what they thought they wanted for so long. So being a peer-focused organization, we're able to take and intervene in all these different spaces. We're taking the same base information, but we're articulating it in a language and with peers who understand whatever that unique experience may be.
This is good stuff, man.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Proactive prevention is getting in and starting the conversation before it adversely impacts our lives, before we suicidal ideation or self-harm or anything.
And we have very similar, the very similar idea with like your shirt, fuck stigma. It starts a conversation. So like we have the, all of our shirts that we make, we don't care. Like we would love to sell a lot of them and make lots of money. But the point is to get a conversation started. We want you to ask, what is that shirt? Yep. Right. And it's like, so like Dave's wearing the dumpster fire shirt today, and it's like, that's, veteran trash talk. It's like, it's a dumpster fire every time we get together, and it's like, you never know. It's just whatever. And we put it out with beer. Well, it's great. And then like the quit being a triggered pansy, that's that kind of thing. It's like, just, and I just wrote a paper about it to where, why can't a civilian ask a veteran what war was like? Like, why? They fucking paid for it, right? Like they pay. Like my dad said it, and he might come off as an a-hole sometimes when he says it, but it's true. He's like, I pay the military to be in harm's way. Like that's what they're supposed to do, right?
Yeah,
and then, but in the same aspect, when they come home, he also says, well, you need to take care of them. It's like, it's not one of those. It's not just a one-sided coin. But
it's also like what society and as civilians understand to be the military experience is like 2% of what it actually is.
Right, because they lump us into, you're just this,
and well, yes and no, but they're not making movies about the guys who are getting drunk in the barracks and having parties and, being around to raise each other's kids and building a place of camaraderie.
That's a good idea.
Going to work every day.
Sam, you watching?
Yeah. They're making movies about the people who are going out into war and they're doing these crazy things. And
right, it's a narrative. It's a narrative that you're
narrative. Yeah,
so they did make a movie about that. It was called Jarhead.
Yeah, Jarhead.
In about 2 minutes of war, and it was the worst. Army, Marine, whatever.
It is a narrative. Everybody in the Air Force flies planes.
Like,
the Army just
you're not even
goes to war.
Get to shoot.
Yeah.
What? And those are almost stigmas if you think about it, right? They're social and cultural factors that affect the way that someone sees himself in their sphere of influence. So if you're looking at a service member who, did their 4 years, wanted the opportunity to deploy, maybe they're literally their last name fell too far in the alphabet to get pulled for something. I knew a guy who was on a ship and all of his, like up to a certain letter, I think it was like D or E, got pulled to go to Iraq. And he was like, G was his last name. And like, it ate him alive. He was like, this is what I joined to do. This is what I wanted to do. So like when he's going out into the community and someone's like, oh, like, what was it like in war? Like, oh, you have this and this. And he's like, now I don't even feel valid. Like, I don't want to share my experience as a service member because you've already put this idea.
Well, that's when you lie. You just make something up. I used to, before I deployed, I would tell Black Hawk Down stories when people ask me. And then I think I did like 7 times until somebody goes, isn't that Black Hawk Down? I was like, yeah, it is. So it's like, but
so there's this little term you I don't know if you've heard of it, probably not, but stolen valor. It's people physically assaulted.
But I mean, like we talked about in the fight show today, I've been getting told for about, 30 something years, somebody's going to knock me out. I'm still waiting. So it's like, I'm waiting for Buddy to come knock me out, but he's too old now.
But that's what's cool about, creating spaces like Veteran Trash Talk or Project Red Team where we're having these conversations is that people don't have to hide who they are when they're coming in. They're saying, hey, you're openly giving me the space to express what my experience was like, whether it was something like you could have 2 people who are in the exact same command, went through the exact same boot camp, had the same job, literally identical experiences, and their viewpoint and narrative of what that experience is going to be is completely different.
Different,
for
yeah.
sure.
It's easy to navigate that space and be like, oh, well, you're invalid for this reason, or like, yeah, that's cool, I hear what you're saying, but also my experience was this. And if we're talking about this community as a whole, there's so many different dynamics to what people's experience looks like. But if it doesn't align within themselves, Buddy talked about stigmas really perpetrating within ourselves. If it doesn't align with what these individuals think that's going to look like for themselves, they're going to silence themselves. And in part, it's one of those personal responsibilities to work through that. But also, you can't get mad at someone for what they don't know. They don't know that a different narrative exists. They don't know that resources are out there to help them articulate these things. And so the more that you can meet people where they are, which we know are on online forums, we know are in, bars where, people are getting to have this talk and then seeing t-shirts and being like, oh, like, were you in service? Like it's not as much in those VFWs anymore. It's not as much in those public places because people do struggle with the veteran identity, and those who are comfortable in their identity, those who are struggling don't feel comfortable in navigating those spaces because they feel like, oh, well, I'm going to compare myself to them or XYZ or whatever it is. So having community spaces like Veteran Trash Talk or Project Red Team, where we can say, hey, we don't expect you to be any rank. We don't expect you to have any kind of experience or any kind of background or any kind of knowledge of anything other than being a human who happened to have this connection to this community. Come in and shoot the shit with us. Get connected to resources. Let us know what you need. Let us get you connected. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to hear people go through our educations and then feel comfortable sharing something for the first time.
So Kennedy, do you guys have like a Facebook or social media that people can follow or group?
Yeah. So if you go,
connected?
if you just look up Hope for the Day, so just the word hope for the day, those are all of our social medias. The organization that hosts our platform will share all of our Project Red Team stuff there.
Okay.
And then if you actually look up Project Red Team Digital Community on Facebook, we have a digital Facebook group that's similar to Veteran Trash Talk, actually, where people can come in and be like, hey, I'm looking for this resource. Does anyone have any information? Or we have organizations that will email me stuff, and I'll have the education coordinator post in there and be like, hey, if you're located in this area of the world or the state, we did that for a lot of Veterans Day programming. Hey, if you're looking for a meal, if you're looking for a Veterans Day event to go to, if you're looking for some buddies to hang out with, this is going on.
So Hope for the Day and Project Red Team.
Yeah, so
I just put it in the grunt. I just put it in the Gruntworks stream,
Okay.
and then Dave can probably put that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Originally had their own, like our platform had our own social media, but it got a lot less engagement. And so we're just transitioning into sharing all of our information on the Hope for the Day, because it also gives civilians the opportunity to learn a lot of things they didn't know. Like we had a conversation.
Right.
We partnered with a foundation earlier at the October to December, basically. Grunt Style started their own foundation, and they gave us. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Not even owned by grunts.
Old Navy's more veteran than Grunt Style.
So they gave us a grant to be able to go out and educate people. And so we created this campaign of basically, did you know that this systemic issue is occurring in the military as far as like compartmentalizing mental health and not talking about it? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. And what does this mean? And then, hey, this is how you can take action. And so that's our goal, is to create education-based programming and information so that people can get brought into the ideas of things and then essentially activate getting and becoming a part of our.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, we gotta start wrapping some things up here because Army just got up 7-0 on Navy. No big deal, Len. But shooting up. Hey, let's reconnect. And let's get you guys on our platform to do what you're doing, and because our reach is growing every week, thanks to people like Glenn, who was one of the moderators, admin on the page, and Kevin and all those guys behind the scenes that do all that work for us.
100%.
But yeah, it was a pleasure having you on, and again, we'd love to, share your information as much as we can. So whatever you guys want to put out on our page, I'm sure you're on the page, right?
Yep.
On the group. Yeah. So if you want to put something out, just throw it out there.
Awesome.
It shouldn't be a problem. But Dave, you want to close us out?
Yeah, good to go. I was going to give Kennedy the last word. Thanks again for coming on. We'll definitely continue to support you, share your information, everything. And then maybe Kevin and I can do that call that we were supposed to do that one Sunday.
Stood up to face, man.
Yeah, stood up to face, man. It's never happened before. But let's make that happen. And to everybody that's tuned in, go check out veterantrashtalk.com. Has all our links, and our website, shop.veterantrashtalk.com. Cool merch. All right. Buy our merch. Part of the proceeds benefit the organization Stop Soldier Suicide. You happy, Nick? Yeah.
Yeah,
Good?
yeah. You
Yeah,
can't
all
see,
right.
like, honestly, that's the narrative. You
I know.
can't say
I know.
certain
We
words.
can't say support.
You
You
can't
know,
say
we got to say
supports,
benefit.
You got to say benefits.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
got a different ring to people's ears.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Happy Saturday, everyone. We're out.
Yeah.